Well, welcome attendees. If it's Hump Day, it's Hemp Day. I'm Robert Colangelo. I'm your moderator for today's session. Today's session is going to focus on resources available to the hemp supply chain. And we have wonderful speakers. Each are going to represent different facets of assistance that can be available to the supply chain. To kick it off, we have Jamie Campbell. She's the Executive Director of the Midwest Hemp Council. And she's going to talk about what her nonprofit trade association can do to help us. Then that'll be followed by Heather Enos. She's president and CEO of Northwest Indiana Forum, representing regional economic development. And so she'll let you know the resources that she has available and what her counterparts have available throughout the state and the country. And then lastly, we have Bree Sierra, director of the Newton Soil and Water Conservation District, which is going to talk about local technical assistance that she has available in Newton County and what the network of soil and water conservation districts have available in Indiana and throughout the country. So I am very happy to introduce the hardest working person in the hemp industry. I've known Jamie a short time, just under 2 years. But for those 2 years, I've seen her work tirelessly 24/7 on creating a hemp community for all of us here in the Midwest. She really cares about what she's doing, and she really wants to build a hemp community that is doing it right, is reputable, is trustworthy, so that we can have a sustainable industry. So I'm honored to introduce my friend, Jamie Campbell. Jamie, it's all yours.
Everyone, thank you. Appreciate you all being here. This has been a wonderful opportunity to have Robert and his team to host these along with Marguerite and Purdue's cooperation. In this time, one of the things that Midwest Hemp Council really likes to do is networking and bring people together. So opportunities like this, where the workload was spread amongst everyone and education was disseminated are absolutely perfect. So thank you all. So as Robert said, here we go. There we go. If anyone, obviously these will be shared, but this is my contact information. I am Executive Director of the Midwest Hemp Council. And who are we? The Midwest Hemp Council members are involved in all facets of the hemp industry. I like to say seed to shelf, but it really is from the regulatory and legislative standpoint. We have regulatory and legislative persons who are vested all the way through end users, which is obviously the hemp industry, but we are entering into other industries, whether it's manufacturing. So our membership is approximately 302 members right now. We represent 22 states. That is much more representative in Indiana and her spoke states, of course. We do have heavy membership out of California, Colorado, Oregon, and some others. One of the groups of members that I'm really most proud of, and I would like to think really represents what Midwest Hemp Council is about, is we have members that are associations, and several of you are on here today. We have iHemp Michigan, who we share membership with, and Ohio Hemp Cooperative, the Illinois Hemp Growers, U.S. Hemp Growers, U.S. Hemp Building Association. And this makes me really happy because it is about who we are, co-opetition. All of us need to be working together. So I'm excited that we are in that position. And if you are an organization that is not currently a member, please reach out to me. Let's talk about how we can collaborate. So our mission, how do we do that? Well, Credible Information Center is number one for us. The goal is accurate, credible, and timely information distribution. To do that, we have to build and continue to build out quality relationships, engagement with agriculture, legislators, regulatory persons, all of our members, of course, industry leaders, strategic partners, other associations and agencies. This is a nascent, a birthing industry, so it requires collaboration between all of these parts. how do we distribute and disseminate this credible information that we choose to work with? Website, social media, our podcast. We have a podcast every Thursday. One of the things we take pride in with this podcast, it is not an infomercial and it is not advertising. We try to make sure it's very educational and will contribute to industry development. We have a monthly policy circle for our policy circle members, monthly policy circle call. That's the second Tuesday of every month, where we talk about issues throughout the Midwest states. We do email alerts and a newsletter, and we host networking events. Obviously, these have now become virtual, which is actually good because then it brings in all of our members, not just those in Indiana or Illinois and Ohio. I will, along this lines, let all of you know that we're soon launching, we're very excited to be launching a new membership-based platform that will make all of this much more smooth. Right now, quite honestly, we do a lot of this manually. So soon we'll be launching a new website, probably within 2 weeks. So look for that, because even non-members will be able to gain benefit from that. Trusted policy advocate. The goal here is to be for hemp-friendly legislative and regulatory consistency. As most of you know, there are very few states that have consistent regulatory guidance with anyone around them. For example, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, we all have completely different regulatory framework. Indiana is actually different because our Department of Ag is not involved in the hemp guidance, or I should say it's remote, barely involved. Our regulatory body is the Office of the Indiana State Chemist. That alone makes us different from surrounding states. The craft hemp flower issue. So really what we would like to see is for us to be able to lead in bringing consistency to this regulatory format, as well as, of course, legislation. Justin Swanson is our president, and he is vice president of BOE's Public Affairs, and he is currently not only leading the legislation guidance in Indiana as far as his input and working with legislators, but he's currently working with several other states on specifically their craft hemp flower, but he's always available to field phone calls from our members and collaborators. We recently joined in with the U.S. Hemp Growers, the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, the Hemp Feed Committee, and Hemp Feed Coalition and others to contact Congress to make sure that hemp was included in these COVID loan opportunities. And in fact, if you joined our policy call yesterday or watched for some action items, we were successful in getting hemp specified within the legislation that's now pending federally for the next round of loans. So that's a big deal. Dedicated forum. Our goal is to be a trusted, credible, leading association that builds a strong industry foundation. Most of you on here, I'm looking through the list, and I know you've been a contributor, so you've heard our word coopetition, and we truly believe in that. This is not something that can be done alone. It's not something that can be done state by state. So we do need to bring everyone together and work. Who does that involve? A collective of hemp industry participants, advocates as well, the growers, the farmers, the breeders, and to build out the supply chain. If you're involved in the industry, you know that we have some disconnects and some hurdles within the supply chain. And again, that's going to take coopetition, not competition, so that we make sure that this is a fluid industry. Also, we want to be a member service provider to support our individual members in their goals. And by doing that, that impacts the industry as a whole. I had a conversation the other day where someone was doing something internally that was new, and they were talking with me about it, and it involved traceability and transparency. And it was a great conversation because what they were going to do was not just going to benefit their reputation and their business, but it was going to set a precedent. and it will come out to set a precedent for the industry. Not unlike Indiana did with our QR codes for CBD. In 2018, the QR code became a requirement within Indiana, and that flowed over into other states and has now been very helpful in transparency and accountability. So how do we grow? How do we grow this industry with consistent and hemp-friendly legislation and regulation? The USDA regs, we still need some work there. We've had some successes, but there's still some work regarding some testing, and there is discussion regarding 1%. We think we're, instead of the 0.3%, we think we have a ways to go, but that's still a discussion. We all, I think, agree that the FDA needs to get involved. We don't want a very heavy hand, but we need the FDA involved to work with us on cannabinoids so that we can expand this industry from seed to shelf. 2022 Farm Bill, there's work already being done there to expand and improve the language for hemp. And on the state level, the work continues. I know here in Indiana, we started out with approximately 11 bills, and most of those were negated, which was fine because the USDA and in Indiana, the Office of the State Chemist stepped up to do some things that would mitigate the need for further legislation. What else do we need? We need to start with good genetics. I'm excited because we have now people in the Midwest, not unlike Hemplet Farms, that are leading in providing good quality seed and clones. Last year, almost all of our seed and clones came from the West Coast, and it was very problematic. So I'm excited that we now have the Midwest taking heed of this and working on moving forward. Agronomy. Realistically, we're still in the research mode. We still have work to do on agronomy. I think this mostly, it actually applies across the board, but I think especially in grain and fiber. When we're talking about row crops, we still have some agronomy to work on. Equipment, definitely equipment modification is happening, and now you see some of the larger industry people coming out with that. Great. Market development and stability. Again, the FDA can step in and help the cannabinoid industry significantly. We can help ourselves. There's a wonderful opportunity for expansion here and consistency. As to fiber and grain, a lot of markets right around the corner. We need to continue to build upon that. And the last point I'll say is contracts. This is something that is difficult because we have a lot of people who are growing without contracts, and that will hurt the farmer, and then it hurts the industry. So we encourage everyone to communicate again and work together through the supply chain so that it is fluid and effective, and we're not underproducing or overproducing, and that all we're doing is building a strong platform for the industry. I'll close with these resources, which are great within the state of Indiana specifically, and then Midwest Hemp Council, but PurdueHemp.org and the OISC have some wonderful tools for agronomy and reporting. And then we also have others that Marguerite at Purdue or myself can direct you to on a more national scale. But with that, I want to thank Robert for hosting this and for having me today, and thank all of you for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Jamie. That was a great quick summary of all that the association does. We have time for one question, so I wanted to ask this. And there's a number of groups out there that are promoting GMP and other regulatory structures. Where does the association stand, and what's your thoughts on Food Safety Manufacturing Act, and which one of those is most significant, the GMP or the FSMA, in producing ingestible products?
You know, honestly, Robert, I don't feel fully prepared to answer that, but I think that the Food Safety Modernization Act is, I know that's what I defer to in general, but as far as for the cannabinoids and for grain, I think it's really going to depend on the specific product and the producer.
Very good. Is there someone in the association that you could refer to for that answer to that question? Is Justin working on that, or the policy group?
Quite honestly, no, we have not yet. We have just formed our committees, and I look to that to be addressed in the very near future. We have a grain and fiber committee, which we are asking for people from membership to sit at the table because of issues just like this. We need to be able to pinpoint and have our membership represented. I think Jessica Scott is on here, and she's one of our leaders and has a lot of history on the food side of things. So she may be someone that people could reach out to, and that's Jessica at Midwest Hemp Council.
Great. Well, it looks like you've got someone that may be interested in joining the committee. So thank you very much, Jamie. If you could stay on if there's any additional questions at the end.
Absolutely.
All right, great. So I've known Heather for about over 5 years now, and she is the president and CEO of the Northwest Indiana Forum. Her job is to bring sustainable development into Northwest Indiana and attract businesses that create jobs and improve the local economy. We're actually working on a propagation campus up here in Northwest Indiana, and Heather helped us tremendously identify a site and put together an incentive package to help us develop that site. And she is going to talk a little bit about what her group does and what other economic development agencies do throughout the state of Indiana and the country to help the hemp supply chain. So Heather, thanks for joining us, and it's all yours.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert. I appreciate it. So as Robert said, I'm Heather Ennis. I'm the president and CEO of the Northwest Indiana Forum. Oh no, there we go. A little bit about the Northwest Indiana Forum. We are the voice of business here in Northwest Indiana. We market Northwest Indiana as the place to do business. And then we stake out and drive bold initiatives that otherwise wouldn't get done. A little bit about the area that we cover. I know that we've got folks from all around the Midwest on this call, so forgive me, my scope is a little bit more dialed in on Northwest Indiana. So we cover Lake, Porter, LaPorte, Newton, Jasper, Pulaski, and Stark counties here in Northwest Indiana. We're just outside of Chicago, so we are in the Chicago metro service area for our business development. We work with a lot of partners around the state. So listed here on this screen are the Indiana Economic Development Corporation and their regional directors. So if you are in the state of Indiana and you have a need for state incentives, I'll go through some state incentives a little bit later in my presentation. But if you have a need for state incentives, here are the folks that you would reach out to. And then this gives you, based on where you're located, just to be able to dial it in a little bit more and see where each of those representatives cover. And then we are a REDO, or Regional Economic Development Organization. You'll also hear us talk about LEDOs, which are local economic development organizations, more on the municipal front. The regional groups around the state are listed here, as well as the areas that they cover, so that if you are in the state of Indiana and you're looking for who you would reach out to that would be my type of counterpart, you can see them here on this list. In 2018, seems like a lifetime ago, the Northwest Indiana Forum realized we have 47 municipalities, 7 counties, 15 mayors. We were a pretty diverse area. So we needed to draw a plan together to pull all of the region together. So we went out to start this Ignite the Region. We looked at what we were missing as a region, and what we saw we were missing was a strong, compelling regional vision and economic playbook that we could all be working from. As I said, with 47 municipalities, it's easy for everybody to go off on their own and do their own thing. Oftentimes people talk about so that we're in silos. I like to call them cylinders of excellence. We've got great people doing great things, but maybe just not all connected. So We crafted Ignite the Region in order to be able to do that. Our motivation for this plan was that in the region, we were seeing declining population. As I talked about, we're right next to Chicago, so a lot of our workforce commutes into the Chicago metro service area. Our job growth was not performing as well as the state or national average. We're seeing better than average labor force participation, and obviously these numbers are dated with 4.8% unemployment rate in 2017, which is dramatically different today. But leaving the pandemic aside, these were the numbers that drove us to want to reinvent the Northwest Indiana region. The vision and goals for this plan were that Northwest Indiana drives its vibrant and inclusive communities by creating the most dynamic economic environment of the Midwest, fueled by innovation, diversity, and talent. When we looked at these, the pillars of this plan, they're very similar to any economic development plan, but the base pillars for this plan are business development and marketing, entrepreneurship and innovation, infrastructure, talent, and placemaking. You may ask, where the hemp industry lies in all of this, and obviously there's great entrepreneurship and innovation happening in this industry, creating a sense of place, creating a sense of welcoming is critically important, and it's a growing business, and there's a lot of opportunity to help that business grow here in Northwest Indiana. So much so to the point that if you look at our target industry sectors, the agricultural value chain is a critical component to our success. We have 4 extremely rural counties in Newton, Jasper, Pulaski, and Stark counties, and it's very important to us to continue to help those communities grow, to continue to help be able to attract business that utilizes the resources that they grow on a regular basis, and then go ahead and help them to produce more or to process more or to be able to have an end product that really means a lot to the market and gets distributed out nationally and internationally. As we're talking about the hemp as an industry, hemp is food, hemp is fiber, hemp as medicine, hemp is biodiesel fuel. There's huge amounts of, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but there's a huge amount of untapped use for the hemp industry that we're just embarking on. And so if we can help to be leaders in that and help to be a welcoming spot with a easy to navigate regulatory environment, we want to make sure that we can be there to help guide folks through that. So opportunities to grow in Indiana and more specifically in Northwest Indiana. The Indiana Small Business Development Center is located here in Northwest Indiana. Lori Felt is our regional director. We've got these locations all across the state as well. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the SBDC, and I'm sure that they're located in other states. It is a federal organization through the SBA. So the great thing about them is that they will help. They've got coaches, and they'll help you draft a business plan, and they'll help you figure out what the market demand is in your area, so that you're going into a business where you can be able to start off at least knowing demographically that you'll have the opportunity for some success. So I put Lori's contact information in here because I thought she's been a great resource and has helped a lot of businesses grow faster and stronger. The state incentives through the state of Indiana are primarily based on wages, investment, and jobs. So as you're talking to IEDC representatives or representatives in other states, know that most incentives do get tied to number of jobs, the wages that you're going to pay your employees, and then in addition to that, the capital investment that you plan to make. So equipment, things like that. There's also opportunity for local incentives in the state of Indiana, whether it be through tax abatement or the TIF districts. If your property happens to be in a TIF district, most rural properties are not in TIF districts, so they're usually located closer to the municipalities. But it's always important to ask, and some counties do have TIF districts as well. So when dealing with the locals, those are important things. And so I've just listed a few of the state incentives: economic development for a growing economy, Hoosier Business Investment Tax Credit, and Skills Enhancement Fund. So then one other incentive that I put out there is the patent income tax exemption. As this is a growing industry and that it is continually evolving, I'm sure there are many of you that are working on things that may be proprietary and that you're working toward patenting, whether it's a new piece of equipment that you found has been really helpful to you, or a new hybrid way of growing. So there are some incentives from the state of Indiana for patent income tax exemption. Robert asked us to touch on this. This just came out this afternoon. Tomorrow there is a webinar. The Agricultural Marketing Service, the USDA, is hosting a webinar for producers interested in applying for direct payments through the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. So this may be extremely germane to those of you on the call right now that are looking to find ways to engage through the CARES Act or through federal assistance that's out there. This webinar tomorrow, I believe it's at 1 p.m. Eastern, could be beneficial to you. So I just threw that in there as additional information for you. Again, I know that the information that I've given is pretty localized to Northwest Indiana, but please know that across the state, across the country, there are many folks like me. I am currently the chair of our Indiana Economic Development Association, so I have great connections across the state, but we also work with the International Economic Development Corporation and know people across the country. So if there's any way that I can be of assistance to you to help you find someone that's in your neck of the woods that could be helpful as you look to grow your business in those areas, please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is right here, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Heather, thank you very much. That was a very pithy and concise presentation. You cover a large amount of information in a short time.
I'm going to take a drink now.
And I think it's not how much you know or how many people you know, but it's how much you really care about this region. You grew up here, you know, you've got a family here, and you really want to see it prosper, and you want to see it prosper in a sustainable manner. So I appreciate all you do. Quick question for you is, a lot of government incentives take time and they take planning. Any guidance you can give to the audience when you're looking to get an incentive package together, of how you need to think about it from a schedule standpoint?
Yeah, so make sure you get involved early with folks. So I would engage the SBDC on the front end of things so that they can help you develop a strong business plan and make sure that you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. You don't want to go in and ask for incentives when you have something half-baked. But at the same time, you don't want to go in when your cake is just ready for frosting and you've picked out a piece of land and you've picked out you know exactly where you want to be and exactly what you want to do, because most of these incentives are competitive. So it would require that you're looking at other states, or that you're looking at other investments, that in order to bring the state really to the table to offer incentives. So make sure that you get your plan somewhat together, but don't have it so far down the road that it's, you've already purchased land and you're put halfway built, and then you decide, oh, we should probably ask for incentives.
Well, thank you very much. And if you could stick around, we'll may have some more questions at the end.
Absolutely. Happy to. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Great job. Well, our next and final speaker today is Bree Sierra. I've only recently had the pleasure to work with her, and I found Bree to be smart, filled with energy and passion, and she loves her work. Her presentation is going to focus on the soil and water conservation districts and how they can assist farmers and what hemp means for those districts and local communities like Newton County. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Bree.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Robert. Like Robert said, my name is Bree Sierra, and I'm the Director and Educator for Newton County, Indiana's Soil and Water Conservation District. So Heather kind of touched on where Newton County is. We're located in Northwest Indiana, about an hour south of Chicago, and smack dab in the middle between the Kankakee River watershed and the Iroquois River watershed. Both of those flow into the Mississippi and Gulf of Mexico. So wherever you're from today, I'm sure we're tied together in some way, shape, or form. We're known here in Newton County for several things. One of which is the Kankakee Sands Nature Conservancy's prairie restoration and bison viewing area, which is really cool. I suggest you guys come down and check it out. We also have a lot of agritourism, so like Fair Oaks Dairy Farm, if you've heard of them at all and you've seen that stuff around. The world-renowned Willow Slough Fish and Wildlife Area, which has some of the best fishing and hunting opportunities in the country, as you can see here by this dinner plate-sized bluegill. We have a lot of row crop agriculture, like this corn and lots of soybean fields down here, so we're heavy on row crop ag. And we also have a lot of ditchweed growing. It was actually introduced here during World War II to grow hemp for rope production, as Newton County has really prime soil and climate to grow it. However, it didn't make the best rope at the time. So although the program was soon abandoned, it still grows like crazy and the plants really took off around here, which kind of shows how good it is for the soil and the area we have. Really funny, I found out that Rolling Stone magazine and High Times, somewhere around the 80s, had actually published articles about Newton County's wild growing ditchweed. So we had people flocking from all over the country coming here to pick it and transport it, which really caused a big issue for local law enforcement. So they began an eradication program, which actually just ended. It was terminated this past year, just in time for commercial hemp production to start back up in the county. So again, the plants are still growing, which is just testament to how good our conditions here are in the county. However, it can also present several problems for those looking to grow hemp in an outdoor operation, as it might cross-pollinate with this wild hemp and contaminate your THC for the commercial plant. Now, Marguerite Bolt went into way better description of that, and information can be found on Purdue Extension's YouTube channel and the Midwest Hemp Council. So I'm not going to touch on that today. But what I will go over is what soil and water conservation districts are, what we do, where we fit into the grand scheme of things, and how we can help you. So what we are the local hub for connecting land users to educational, financial, and technical assistance for applying conservation practices and best management technologies that address soil and water quality problems. We don't know everything, but we sure do pride ourselves as the people who can get you in touch with someone who does. So I certainly don't know half of what's out there in the world. I don't know a 1/1,000,000th of it, but I know people who do. So that's where we come into hand. We are key leaders in soil and water quality improvement. What do? Well, we work at the grassroots level for both rural and urban communities to develop locally driven solutions for our natural resource concerns. So primarily we provide information about soil, water, and natural resource conservation. We help identify and prioritize local soil and water resource concerns. And most importantly, we connect land users to sources of educational, technical, and financial assistance to help implement conservation practices and technologies. Now, looking at the broad scheme of things, there are about 50 million acronyms when it comes to agriculture and conservation. So where does SWCD fit into the mix? Well, right here. We're considered a special district by the state. which means we're a weird governmental entity that operates similar to a not-for-profit. So there are 92 SWCDs within the state of Indiana, so each county has one, and they're all across the country as well. So there's the National Association of Conservation Districts, where you can get on their website if you're not from here, and you can look at all the other SWCDs, find their contact information, and that's really helpful. So we're this network that's nationwide. Mostly all of us are housed within county government. So I'm a Newton County employee. Our program is sponsored and administered by the State Department of Agriculture, which falls underneath the U.S. Department of Agriculture, under which also is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. So we work really closely with NRCS, but we don't necessarily work for them, at least not in this office, how we're kind of organized. So we help get landowners in touch with programs and experts to get them enrolled in things, to work on soil health, the whole gamut. So we're a really important connecting piece of this whole puzzle here. So the other SWCDs may differ in the number of employees they have or the level of connectedness with each of these organizations. But overall, we work with tons of local partners, both governmental and non, to create programs and establish goals based on local needs. Like all of the best initiatives, soil and water conservation districts were born out of crisis. So this picture is a perfect example of that. Back in World War I, a lot of grazing and pasture land was converted to row crop agriculture. And these super intensive tillage practices that came with that created the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, which was absolute mayhem. You can see in this storm right here just how catastrophic it was to our Midwest region and further west. Local farm owners and landowners realized that this was a huge issue and that their soil health and individual health was really important to protect. So they created these locally led organizations called SWCDs, Soil and Water Conservation Districts, to lead soil conservation and education efforts to ensure this would never happen again. So our soil and water conservation districts are organized by a 5-member board of local farmers and conservation-minded professionals. Will help guide the mission and direction of each SWCD based on the local resource concerns and needs there. So today's crisis isn't so much dust anymore. Obviously there's coronavirus, but that's outside of my realm. Today we're focused more on moving soil particles and nutrients from our landscapes to the water. So here you can see this network of river systems we have. So as water moves across the landscape, it takes with it soil and nutrient particles, and stormwater runoff from our urban areas is part of that as well. So they flow through our river systems like the Mississippi and eventually get delivered here to the Gulf of Mexico. Once here, they create a huge algal bloom. When you have that soil and nutrient level, the algae is like tiny microscopic plants and feeds off of that. So it creates this big algal bloom, which in turn then depletes all of the oxygen there and creates the Gulf dead zone every year. This can also happen on a local watershed scale too, and severely impact our local water quality. So just as a reminder, a watershed is all the land that encompasses area that water flows through and across to a central water point like a river. So for us, like I said, we have the Kankakee River and the Iroquois River watersheds where we focus our work on. No matter where you're at, you live somewhere within this watershed, and everything you do to the land, no matter how minuscule you think it is, affects the water flowing through and across it in some way or another. So our role is to work with land users to help limit soil and nutrients leaving their properties. This increases soil health, your farm's resiliency and sustainability for things like climate change, increases your productivity and can increase your crop yield, and ultimately improves water quality. So when it comes to hemp production, how exactly do we help you then? What can we do? Well, We'll connect interested producers and planners, etc., with educational materials and opportunities. Again, that connection is our main goal here. We'll provide information to interested landowners and producers and connect them to the experts and peer mentor networks. Like you see right here in this webinar, we've got just some incredibly intelligent people who know exactly what's going on. And those peer mentor networks like the Midwest Hemp Council are just, I mean, invaluable. They're wonderful. So that's where we come in, is connecting, providing information on how to access that. We work closely with county planners on regional goals and economic opportunities for hemp. We will work closely with local producers and landowners on ways to improve their soil health, sustainability and resiliency of their land. And we work closely on local, regional, and national partners to implement strategies that overall improve water quality. That's our main goal here. So I encourage you all to reach out to your local soil and water conservation district. You can see here I've got 2 links on the screen. The one is for Indiana Soil and Water Conservation Districts, and they'll take you right to the homepage. You can pick out what county you live in, and it gives you the contact info. Or nationally, there's the second link on there. You click on that, pick your state, and it'll pop up an interactive map, exactly who to call and what their information is. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Robert, and thank you guys for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Bree. That was very, again, concise and informative. And I have a quick question for you. You offer, the soil conservation districts offer a lot of resources. What's your sweet spot, and what can you help a hemp farmer with most?
Well, sweet spot is soil health. So looking at your local soil conditions, we would work really closely with Purdue Extension and try to get you in touch with like Marguerite and other local producers in the area to try to troubleshoot and see what you're working with and get you set on a path for success. So connection and hands-on working with you.
So thank you for joining today's session. I'm Robert Colangelo. I encourage you to continue joining these webinars and help us get the word out and make every Wednesday Hump Day into Hemp Day.